On our broadcast here tonight, deep freeze, the lowest temperatures in decades sweeping across this country, even in the deep south where schools are closing because of it. And tonight it's colder in Chicago than it is at the South Pole. Also tonight, grounded, at least one big name airline shutting down operations at a number of big airports because of the cold. Losing ground in Iraq after the U.S. lost so much blood and treasure on the battlefield. Now the U.S. watches as al-Qaeda fighters appear to seize control of a big Iraqi city. And can you hear me now? A long-distance chat with the two Americans currently in space who made that risky repair spacewalk tonight. The view from 260 miles up. Nightly News begins now.
From NBC News World Headquarters in New York, this is NBC Nightly News with Brian Williams.
Good evening. Every state, with the exception of Hawaii, is forecast to experience freezing temperatures over the next 24 hours. Schools in Atlanta, Georgia, have been canceled for tomorrow because of the cold. A major airline is going to shut down operations at some big U.S. airports to give its system and its employees a chance to keep up with the cold. And that's just the start of the impact of what the weather folks are calling a polar vortex, a large, sprawling counterclockwise weather system spreading record cold and reaching far to the south. Up north, it's possible to live your whole life in Minnesota and never see temperatures this cold. And a lot of folks in Nashville tonight never thought they'd see 11 degrees. Oddly, it's colder in Atlanta than it is in parts of Maine tonight. We have it all covered, and we begin with NBC's Kevin Tibbles in Minneapolis. Temperature 15 below, wind chill minus 39. Kevin, good evening.
Brian, this is the coldest weather many parts of this country have seen in 20 years. And even though the hardy folks here in the Twin Cities are used to sub-zero temperatures, this could be a cold snap for the weather books. It is a brutal, biting, and dangerous cold.
Stay home. Don't come out. It's very, very, very cold.
A frigid combination of Arctic air and high winds brought wind chills of minus 56 degrees in places. Schools in parts of 13 Midwestern states shut to keep students home and safe. Many say they will remain closed Tuesday. All this as much of the Midwest digs out from under several feet of snow. Chicago's had twice as much snow to date than it usually gets. Here, commuter chaos with frozen switches stopping trains in their tracks. In Indiana, overnight whiteouts responsible for dozens of pileups. Today, a long line of traffic sat for hours waiting for the reopening of I-65. As cold as ice in Cleveland, the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame did not open. Neither did the city's casino. And many area ski resorts decided it was too dangerous and halted the lifts. Overnight in St. Paul, firefighters braved minus 23-degree temperatures, battling a house fire. Today in Firehouse number 18, Darren Bergmeyer suits up in the heavy gear he and the others wear to reduce the risk of frostbite and hypothermia. What's your main concern?
Look out for one another. Work together as a team.
Even the southern states are shivering. Mississippi has had 60 straight hours of sub-freezing temperatures. Parts of Georgia covered in snow.
Everyone's worried about the dropping temperatures.
And a particularly perilous time for the homeless.
Not very big, but this is our heater.
This couple was found living next to the Mississippi River in minus 24-degree weather.
No, I won't go stay in a shelter if I can't stay with him.
The St. Stephen's shelter managed to find them a room in a local motel, but only until this latest blast of Arctic air passes. And tonight in the Twin Cities, Brian, forecasters are once again warning temperatures could drop to about 19 or 20 degrees below zero, and that is dangerously cold. Brian?
All right, friend, inside for you. Kevin Tipple starting us off from the Twin Cities tonight. Kevin, thanks. This weather has really messed up air travel. As one travel agent put it today, it's not like the grounding of planes post 9/11. It's not the grounding of planes following that European volcano, but it's bad nonetheless. 200,000 passengers had their plans changed by force today. 3,500 flights were canceled. Now JetBlue says they won't fly in this cold at some of their bigger airports. Ann Thompson has more on all of it tonight from JFK here in New York. Ann, good evening.
Good evening, Brian. You know, this really is a miserable time to travel. Almost every major domestic airline experienced cancellations and or delays because of the polar vortex. And this evening at New York's three major airports and Boston Logan, JetBlue says it won't fly at all.
The news that JetBlue would not fly again in New York and Boston until tomorrow morning is trying the patience of already weary travelers.
Everything was canceled from here to JFK, nothing leaving JFK, nothing leaving here.
JetBlue promises to be 100% operational by 3 tomorrow afternoon, but says the overnight break will help it catch up, giving its crews and planes needed rest after several days of bad weather turned its schedule upside down.
This is the second time I've flown JetBlue, and it'll be the last.
It's a little stressful. I mean, I'm going back into Philly, and it's just, I don't know when I'm going to get out of here.
Across the country, FlightAware reports more than 3,700 flights were canceled by 5 p.m. tonight, impacting some 213,000 passengers. At Chicago's O'Hare Airport, help is as rare as an on-time flight.
Waiting in line, which is about a mile long to try to rebook, can't get any information from anybody. The airlines basically won't even answer the phone anymore.
I've been canceled twice, and honestly, I mean, I have no idea when I'm going to be able to get out of here, but I just want to get back. I mean, I've been already in this airport for about 12 hours. I'm exhausted.
The situation is no better at the nation's smaller airports. Hartford's Bradley International does not expect improvement anytime soon.
If our arrivals do not come in late tonight, which are our terminating flights, we don't have the equipment here at the airport to make up our departures tomorrow.
Now, adding to the chaos are new rules that took effect Saturday that require pilots to fly shorter periods of time and get 8 hours of uninterrupted sleep. Add to that a little bad weather, and you can easily see how the careful choreography of airline schedules can get disrupted. Brian?
Ann Thompson from JFK in New York for us tonight. Ann, thanks. As we said, part of why this is news is how far south this cold stretches. Schools closed in Atlanta tomorrow. In Nashville, the temperature has dropped more than 50 degrees since just last night. Al Roker's here with us in the studio with how bad this gets and how far south, Al.
Well, Brian, I got to tell you, I've been doing this for 35 years. I don't ever remember something this widespread, this far south, and it's not going to get better for at least the next 24 hours. This Arctic outbreak, basically, this brutally cold air, is all due to the phrase we've all come to know and love over the last 24 hours, the polar vortex. It usually is up over the North Pole. A weakening jet has let it break loose and come down to the south. It's basically an Arctic hurricane funneling those counterclockwise winds. And so here's what we're looking for tonight as that system makes its way down to the south tomorrow. Dangerously cold air all the way down into southern Georgia and parts of northern Florida. Marquette tonight will feel like 35 degrees, 16 below it'll feel like in Roanoke, 13 in New York City, Chicago 35 below. Tomorrow morning's lows, Wednesday morning's lows. Look at this, it'll feel like 3 below in New York City, Roanoke 10, 11 below in Chicago. Do we get some relief? Well, here's what happens. By late in the week, this polar vortex moves backward, belongs up to the north. And so what that will allow is for it finally to break its grip. You'll start to see those winds now coming more zonal, a zonal flow from west to east, a little more Pacific moisture. And so temperatures get back to where they should be in the low 40s along the coast, upper 30s elsewhere. But the next thing we're worried about, a major outbreak of lake effect snow over the next 24 hours, Brian. We're talking about snowfall amounts that are going to exceed 3 to 4 feet of snow between Syracuse, New York, and Watertown, my alma mater, Oswego, right there in the midst of it. So it's going to be rough.
Thankfully, we have good weather for college football in California, but that's about it as you look at the map. Al Roker, thank you, as always. And among those